So when I talk about the future of connectedness, what I really feel like is it is completely impossible and bordering on arrogant for us to understand just how useful these connections will become as they become more and more broadly available to be able to be put together in unique ways. Because we weren't imagining some of these things just a few years ago when we were excited about Netscape. We weren't imagining these things. We were excited about connections, but we just couldn't see it all coming. There are great apps out there. In this audience, you're probably all aware of StarWalk. I think StarWalk just rocks personally. And if you haven't seen it, it's just one of those things that delights me because of how it brings together services and capabilities of mobility. StarWalk is an app that I've had for a while now that I have on my iPhone. But what it does is it pulls together data from the internet, location services that allow you to, in fact, identify where you are and when you are. So it uses time and space and location. And then it uses the directional capabilities in this device. So as, this is on an iPad, and my kids just love this, and they particularly loved it this summer. We have a farm outside of Memphis that's, way away from the city lights, and the sky just lights up incredibly at night. We step out there with StarWalk on my iPad, and I get enough, Wi-Fi and cell connectivity out there to be able to point it at the sky. And, if you have any astronomy bug in you at all, you recognize this summer was an exceptional summer in the Northern Hemisphere. We could see so many planets so close. We were the closest we'd been to Mars in over 250 years. Mars almost looked like a moon when it was coming up in the early part of the summer. Same thing happened with Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus. The planets were really close and really visible all summer long. We could step out with our StarWalk and we could point it around at the sky and say, what's that? And you can tap on, one of the stars and it brings up data about it. It tells you how far away, what class star it is. If it's a planet, it tells you when it rises and when it sets, how far away it is from the Earth, how far away it is from the sun. And that's really what I mean when I say the combination of location services, the combination of access to data, the combination of telecommunications, location awareness, directional awareness, begin to do things that just simply weren't imaginable. And so, to our kids, it seems, not only be able to use this application as a cool example for a little while because there'll be something cooler. There'll be something that uses another set of services, another set of capabilities, to come in. But, I find, this convergence of things that involve location, that involve connection, and involve interests and applications to be just fascinating. I'm going to conclude with this. This is something that I actually wrote about this in Information Week almost 10 years ago. It's not very many of the things that I talk about are original, but this was something that I dreamed up one night when I was thinking about what is it that's going on here, and I called it the theory of non-relativity, and because most of I do have an interest in science and physics, and when you look out at the relative world, at Einstein's relative world, it is about physics. It's fundamentally about the physics of the universe, and regardless of your belief system, those laws are pretty immutable and irrefutable. I mean, they just work the way they work. But there's this other phenomenon that's going on, and when you look at the atoms and the way that they interact in a physical world, one of the characteristics of our world, there's a whole bunch of them, but the number of atoms that we interact with is fixed. We don't tend to make new ones, and we found out that when we break existing ones, the consequences are significant. You have to be careful when you mess with them. So, there's a fixed number of them out there, but the one thing that we do create, the one thing that we have the ability to create, and we're doing so at an extraordinary pace today, is bits. And the bits that we apply, the information that we apply to the fixed world, this kind of denominator of atoms, this numerator is something that's increasing at an extraordinary pace. I was out here 2 weeks ago at Oracle Open, and I was actually doing something with Michael Dell, and he introduced a term that I was not familiar with to that audience. He talked about zettabytes, and zettabytes is the next order above exabytes. I knew there had to be one. I'm sure there's one above zettabytes, but he talked about the rate at which zettabytes were being accumulated in the world and the ramp that we're on between now and 2020, and that by 2020 we'd be accumulating 30 zettabytes a year. And a zettabyte is really a lot of information. And I was thinking about this and kind of going, well, that kind of plays into the theory of non-relativity. The more information that we have to apply to the fixed world, the more potential begins to exist out there, an opportunity to create these connections, to create applications in unique ways to make the information work together to hopefully better the world. Again, it's the rising tide that lifts all boats. But there is something, that I always find important about this notion, though, too, and that's that this opportunity that exists, while it's the way we learn and relate and play, it's also the same opportunity that exists for some people to steal, to exploit, to fraud and defraud. And so, I always like to point out that as information professionals, as telecommunication professionals, that we have a significant responsibility to guard this revolution. That the revolution that's taking place, while it has so much potential to do so much good in the world, also, needs us to be very conscious and thoughtful about protecting the asset of information and information access, not allowing the scales to tip, towards people who would utilize it to unfair advantage or to fraudulent advantage. So I really want to extol each of us to make that part of our product plans, to make that part of our thought processes as we roll out a connected world that should be about all of us living a better life, and we need to work hard against having it be a life that can be exploited and defrauded by people who would use that information to advantage that we don't want to live out. But thank you very much for your attention. I hope that this story was interesting. I hope that it sets you up in a way that you can explore more about connecting the world and connecting people in lots of different ways. Thank you so much.